Have you ever woken up one morning and realized that the things which once made your heart race no longer spark any excitement? You look around, and though the world keeps spinning, you feel like you're being left behind. Everyone seems to be living faster, loving harder, succeeding sooner. But you're slowing down. Not because you're lazy, but because you can no longer hear the clear voice from within. As if life has quietly taken away your old map, without giving you a new one to follow. But maybe you're not lost. Maybe the universe is hiding you, preparing you for something far greater. And that, in the language of ancient souls, is called the secret isolation. In this video, we'll explore why you suddenly feel disconnected from a world, why silence can sometimes be the most powerful spiritual gift, and how to walk through this darkness to become a version of yourself more radiant than ever before. If you're feeling lonely, empty, or like the world has turned its back on you, stay until the very end of this video, because this isn't just my story. It might be the journey that's awakening inside of you, too. There are moments in life when all the noise suddenly stops. Not because you found peace, but because the world, all at once, falls silent before you. No one calls. No one checks in. No more invitations. No more plans. And you begin to wonder, is there something wrong with me? I remember an old friend, Emma, a once celebrated photographer in our local community. Her calendar was always full, shoots, workshops, exhibitions, one after another. But then the pandemic hit, and almost overnight, everything disappeared. She told me there were mornings she'd sit by the window for hours, doing nothing, just watching time pass like a quiet, unannounced rain. And the most heartbreaking part? No one noticed she was gone. No messages. No emails. No one asked, "Are you okay?" For the first time in years, no one needed her. But in that emptiness, something strange began to unfold. Emma began to write again. Just simple, honest words. Not to share, just to breathe. She learned how to care for a small garden on her balcony. For the first time, she heard the rustling of leaves and saw life blooming in a baby cauliflower. With no camera in her hand, Emma turned the lens inward. And for the first time, she saw herself. The world hadn't truly abandoned her. It had simply paused to return her to a part of her soul long forgotten. That, to me, is what I call the sacred pause. We often see stillness as a void, a disruption. But look a little deeper and you'll see it as a sacred initiation. A divine intermission where the universe silences the noise, so you can hear yourself again. Perhaps for the very first time in years. The small lesson here? Sometimes silence doesn't come to punish you. It comes to rescue you from a life rhythm no longer aligned with your soul. And when you begin to realize that this retreat is not a failure, but a sacred invitation to begin a new chapter, you'll no longer see isolation as an enemy, but as a teacher. So what is truly happening in this quiet season of life? Why does the universe pull you away from the familiar? From the very things that once made you feel alive? Let's explore that in the next section. The concept of secret isolation in spiritual traditions. Throughout human history, every awakened soul, whether a sage, a monk, a prophet, or a warrior of light, has walked through one shared experience. A period of isolation, a withdrawal from the world. And this was never a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it was a sacred rite of passage, a necessary step in the journey of inner rebirth. Different traditions have called it by different names. In Buddhism, it is the moment when the monk retreats into the mountains, not to escape life, but to cleanse the mind of illusion and ego. In Christianity, Jesus entered the wilderness for 40 days to face the shadows and temptations before he could spread a message of love. In Judaism, Moses wandered the desert for 40 years, not because he was lost, but to hear the voice of the divine. And in Greek mythology, heroes would vanish for long stretches, only to return stronger, wiser, and ready to fulfill their destiny. Why is this pattern so universal? Because disappearance is always the prelude to a meaningful return. Because no light becomes lasting unless it has first been tested in the dark. I once read a short story about a Navajo elder from a Native American tribe. He shared that when a boy in the tribe came of age, there were no grand parties. Instead, the boy was taken to a small hut in the middle of the desert. Alone. No food. No reminders. And for 3 days and 3 nights, the boy had one task: to listen. Not to the voices outside, but to the voice within that asked, "Who are you? And why were you born?" You see, whether in the East or West, whether a spiritual master or a desert-bound teen, the phase of secret isolation has always been an essential part of spiritual maturation. The small lesson here: the isolation you're experiencing right now is not just your personal struggle. It is part of a sacred tradition, one that countless souls have passed through before you. It is a threshold, a place where you are no longer the person you once were. And slowly, you are beginning to remember who you truly are. And maybe, if you find yourself in that space where you no longer feel like you belong anywhere, that's okay. Because maybe you were never meant to belong in the old way again. Maybe you are being called home. So what is truly happening when the universe pulls you out of your old circles, your familiar patterns, your former joys? It's not just rest. It's purification at the root. And that is what we'll explore next. Why the universe pulls you away. The energetic reason. When every door around you suddenly closes. When people you once felt close to begin to drift away. When the things that used to bring you joy now feel dull and distant. You might start to think it's your fault. But the truth is, sometimes the universe is gently removing you from your old vibrations. Because everything in life, even people, is energy. And when your soul begins to vibrate at a new frequency, anything that no longer aligns will naturally fall away. It's like when your awareness expands. You can no longer enjoy conversations filled with judgment. Relationships rooted in dependency no longer feel fulfilling. And the habits you once clung to now leave you feeling hollow. I remember one of my students, her name was Sarah. She used to be full of life, partying every weekend, surrounded by a tight-knit circle of friends. But then she went on a short trip to India, where she attended a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And something inside her shifted. When she returned, she no longer felt connected to her old group. The stories that once made her laugh now just felt like noise. She said to me, "I don't know what's happening. I still love them, but I don't belong with them anymore." I looked at Sarah and shared something that had once been said to me during my own transition. You're not becoming strange. You're becoming honest with your true energy. You see, when the universe pulls you away from the crowd, it isn't a punishment. It's an energetic recalibration, a way to free you from what no longer resonates. So you can begin attracting what does. It's like you are a seed starting to sprout. But you can't grow if you're still confined to a pot that's too small. So the universe breaks the pot. Not to hurt you, but to allow you to root deeper, spread wider. Even if, at first, it feels like loss. The small lesson here: if you're losing connection to what once felt familiar, trust that you're not being devalued. You're being raised in frequency. Retreat is not the end. It's a phase of refinement. A melody only becomes beautiful once each note has been carefully tuned. So when your energy and perception begin to shift, how do you make sense of this sacred phase of isolation? The answer lies in those who walked this path before us. And in the next section, we'll discover that through their stories. Mandela, Jesus, and you, what isolation prepares you for. Have you ever wondered, Why do the greatest souls, almost without exception, endure the deepest seasons of isolation? It's not because they were weak. It's not because they were lacking. It's because, to carry light into the world, you must first learn how to burn brightly in the dark. Let's start with a name known across the globe. Nelson Mandela. Before he became a symbol of freedom, he was a prisoner for 27 years. 27 years behind bars. No fame. No audience. No stage to speak from. Many forgot about him. At times, even Mandela himself thought he would die in silence. But it was in that darkness that he learned lessons no university could ever teach. Calmness, patience, forgiveness. And then there's Jesus. Before his journey of healing and teaching began, he spent 40 days alone in the desert facing temptation, hunger, fear, and the human frailty within himself. Only after overcoming all of it did he step into the light to become a source of hope for millions of souls. Do you notice the pattern? Isolation always precedes the birth of a mission. So if you're in a season right now where it feels like no one hears you, no one sees you, I want you to remember, you are not invisible. You are being planted in a room only the universe and your soul can see. I once met a man named Jacob, a former US veteran. After leaving the military, he was diagnosed with PTSD. Friends drifted away. Family kept their distance. He lived alone in an old truck for 3 years, forgotten by almost everyone. But it was inside that isolation that Jacob began to write. Honest, raw, painfully beautiful memoirs. And eventually, those writings became a small book. One that found its way into the hands of thousands of veterans who thanked him for saying what they couldn't say themselves. You see, isolation is not just a time for healing. It is a hidden training ground where you learn what the crowds can never teach you, where you are shaped to carry a light that is uniquely yours. The small lesson here: do not underestimate the season of your disappearance, because it may very well be the first chapter in becoming who you were born to be. But let's be honest, this stage is not easy. Many lose their way during isolation. They fall back into old cycles or collapse under the weight of what they don't yet understand. So, what are the most common mistakes people make during sacred isolation? And how can you avoid losing yourself in the darkness? We'll dive into that next. Common mistakes during sacred isolation and how to avoid them. When you enter a season of sacred isolation, it's as if the world around you begins to fade, and the only voice that grows louder is the one inside you. But that inner voice isn't always easy to understand, and not everyone moves through this phase with grace. In truth, many lose their way in the dark, not because they're weak, but because no one ever taught them how to walk through it. Mistake 1: trying to return to the old simply because it's familiar. When the silence becomes too heavy, it's tempting to run back to relationships that once broke you, to jobs that once drained you, just because the emptiness feels unbearable. I once spoke to a woman named Claire. After a series of painful events, she quit her job, left social media, and retreated to a small cabin in the woods. Everything seemed peaceful until the second week. That's when the silence became suffocating. She picked up her phone and texted her ex, the one who made her cry for months. "Just to feel like I still had someone," she said. But here's the paradox. The moment we reject the silence is the moment we delay the healing. Mistake 2: assuming you're broken or something's wrong with you. When no one calls your name, when your projects stall, when nothing ahead seems clear, the ego starts whispering, "You're failing." But the truth is, you're simply in the middle of a rebirth. And like any birth, the transition is the most painful, the most disorienting, but also the most sacred. Mistake 3: comparing your journey to someone else's. You scroll through social media. Someone just got promoted. Another's on vacation. Someone else just got engaged. And you manage to clean out an old drawer and write a few journal entries you're not sure you'll ever share. But remember this. The greatest transformations often happen in silence. So what's the small but powerful lesson here? Don't rush to escape the isolation just because you're uncomfortable with emptiness. See it instead as sacred ground. A place where you're being asked to release what no longer belongs. To make space for what is quietly growing within. And if you learn how to listen, this phase will no longer feel like a prison. It will become a temple. So now the real question is, how can you move through this sacred terrain with steadier steps? Are there practical, gentle tools that can help you stay grounded when nothing feels certain? Let's explore that next. Tools to navigate your inner desert, what to actually do. You may have heard the saying somewhere, your mind is a garden, and silence is the most fertile soil for awareness to grow. But here's the fascinating part. This isn't just a poetic truth from spiritual traditions. Science is now beginning to confirm it. Silence not only heals the heart, it rewires the brain. In a well-known study from Harvard University, scientists scanned the brains of individuals who practiced silent meditation for just 10 to 20 minutes a day. What they discovered was remarkable. After just 8 weeks, the hippocampus, the region associated with memory, learning, and emotional regulation, became noticeably thicker. At the same time, the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for triggering fear and anxiety, began to shrink. In simple terms, silence doesn't make you weaker. It strengthens you at the neurological roots. Imagine your brain as a traffic system. When you're constantly bombarded by news, social media, work, and conversations, your neural highways are jammed. But when you allow yourself to be silent, not just with your mouth, but with your mind, you're giving your nervous system something precious. A sacred pause. A spiritual reset. I once worked with a man named Mike, a software engineer living in New York. He always told me, I can't meditate. My brain never shuts up. Then his mother passed away, suddenly. Overwhelmed by grief, he withdrew from the city and spent 3 months in a quiet countryside cabin. No internet, no TV, no traffic, just birdsong, just wind, just endless, quiet afternoons. At first, he said he felt like he was going mad. But then one day, while doing the dishes, he broke down in tears. Not out of sorrow, but because, for the first time, he felt real peace. He told me, I thought I needed to heal the pain. But what I really needed was to heal the noise in my mind. And the small lesson here is this. You don't always need to understand everything. Sometimes, you just need to be still and allow your body, mind, and soul to find their own way back to the original balance you were born with. Because silence is not the absence of something. It is the foundation, where your clearest ideas are born, where your deepest wounds begin to heal, and where your soul starts remembering who it truly is. So, if silence is this powerful, this sacred, how do you fully embrace it during your season of isolation? In the next section, we'll explore that with gentle, practical guidance. Tools to navigate your inner desert, what to actually do. If you find yourself in the middle of your own desert, a space where the familiar has faded, where you no longer know where you're headed, or when the light will return, then the most important thing is this. Don't rush to escape your emotions. Instead, learn how to walk slowly, with an open heart and a softened mind. To do that, you don't need grand solutions. You need small, sacred tools. Simple, but profoundly healing. 1. Journal as a dialogue with your soul. Write not for others to read, but for you to listen. Let the pen be your witness, your mirror, your sanctuary. Each morning, try writing these 3 things. What am I feeling today? What do I need to release? What is my soul whispering to me? You will be surprised. The truths you've long buried may surface clearly when held in your own handwriting. 2. Practice silent meditation, just 10 minutes a day. No need for elaborate rituals. Just sit, back straight, eyes gently closed. Breathe as if holding yourself in a loving embrace. A friend of mine, Lucas, once said, "I couldn't sit still for even 1 minute. But then I realized, if I can't sit with myself, how could I ever be at peace with the world?" He started with 1 minute, then 5, then 10. And after 3 months, he told me, "I'm no longer afraid of silence, because silence feels like home." 3. Create a small daily ritual. When you're no longer plugged into the rhythm of the outside world, time can feel formless. That's why small rituals can ground you. Try lighting a candle each morning, drinking tea in complete silence, playing gentle music as the sun sets. These small, repeated acts become anchors, like stepping stones in the desert, marking your path back to yourself. The small lesson here: you don't need to do something extraordinary to survive isolation. You just need to return inward a little more each day. That is how you plant seeds of awakening in soil that once seemed barren. And one day, when the darkness no longer frightens you, you will realize you didn't just survive the season. You were quietly reborn within it. So what, then, is truly transforming inside you during this time? What shifts are happening, even if you can't yet name them? Let's explore that next. The hidden gift: why you'll never be the same again. When you emerge from your secret season of isolation, there won't be fireworks, no applause. In fact, the world may not even realize you disappeared or that you've returned. But one thing is certain: you will not be the same. Something has shifted within you. A perspective, a frequency, a quiet strength born from the silence you had the courage to sit with. You may not notice it right away, but gradually you'll see that you no longer react the same. You no longer crave approval like before. You no longer rush to prove anything. Instead, you begin to listen more deeply, love more gently, live more slowly, but more fully. I remember a woman named Teresa. She had been a high-ranking HR director for a major company with over 15 years in the industry. But then came the sleepless nights, the depression, the sense of being utterly lost. She took a 6-month leave of absence. No one understood why. During that time, she tended a small garden, read books, meditated, and wrote handwritten letters to herself, one each day. When she returned, it wasn't to reclaim her old career. It was to open a support center for women who had lost connection with themselves. She told me, "I've never felt this strong in my life, even though, from the outside, I seem to have less power than before." That is the hidden gift. You don't need to become bigger by the world's standards. You only need to become truer in the way your soul has always longed for. So what's the small but powerful lesson here? Isolation is not an interruption. It is an inner ritual, a sacred shedding of the old, so you can carry a purer light into a new way of being. You will never be the same again, not because you lost something, but because you finally found yourself. And once you've been touched by that transformation, you will carry something very different when you return to the world. Not an answer, but a presence. So then, when you bring that new presence into a noisy, chaotic world, what happens next? How do you live in alignment with your inner light, even when the world doesn't yet understand it? Let's close this journey with our final reflection. From darkness to radiance, the return of the transformed self. Every journey of transformation has a beginning. And one day, you will find yourself returning to the world again. But this time, you won't return as someone who merely survived the hardship. You will return as someone who carries light. In ancient myths, the hero always disappears, before re-emerging with a gift for the people. A deeper wisdom, a renewed courage. A love that asks for nothing in return. And now, that story is becoming yours. You don't come back to prove anything. You return to offer presence. You've sat with the darkness. So now, you know how to sit beside someone else's pain. You've known disorientation. So now, you know how to gently offer hope to those who are lost. I once had a friend named Ethan. After losing his first child, he spent an entire year in complete isolation. No social media, no conversations, no work. People thought he had given up. But a year later, Ethan reappeared. Not with posts about grief, but with quiet, heartfelt reflections on how a father learns to live again with a broken heart. He didn't try to teach anyone. He simply shared his story softly. And he once said, "Sometimes, true love is the decision to keep living, even when you are no longer whole." That is the return of a reborn soul. Not loud, not flashy, but profoundly magnetic. Because it speaks from truth. And you, too. If you are walking this path, know this. You are not just recovering. You are growing in spirit. Whether you choose to live quietly or shine brightly, you carry something priceless now. A full, tender, honest presence. The small lesson here: sometimes you don't need to say something profound. You just need to be. With a heart that has learned how to be still without fear. And that alone can change someone's world. So if you feel ready to return, walk slowly, with the new light rising in your chest. And remember, you don't have to go back to who you were. You're allowed to walk forward as someone new, but still deeply, wholly you. And if you're still in the middle of the journey, still waiting for the light to reveal itself, don't worry. Because even if you haven't stepped out yet, that light has already begun to grow inside you. And in the final part of this journey, we will pause together, just to listen to a whisper you may have overlooked along the way. Final reflection: if you are here, you are being called. Every journey of transformation has a beginning. And one day, you will find yourself returning to the world again. But this time, you won't return as someone who merely survived the hardship. You'll return as someone who carries light. In ancient myths, the hero always disappears, before re-emerging with a gift for the people. A deeper wisdom, a renewed courage. A love that asks for nothing in return. And now, that story is becoming yours. You don't come back to prove anything. You return to offer presence. You've sat with the darkness. So now, you know how to sit beside someone else's pain. You've known disorientation. So now, you know how to gently offer hope to those who are lost. I once had a friend named Ethan. After losing his first child, he spent an entire year in complete isolation. No social media, no conversations, no work. People thought he had given up. But a year later, Ethan reappeared. Not with posts about grief, but with quiet, heartfelt reflections on how a father learns to live again with a broken heart. He didn't try to teach anyone. He simply shared his story softly. And he once said, "Sometimes, true love is the decision to keep living, even when you are no longer whole." That is the return of a reborn soul. Not loud, not flashy, but profoundly magnetic. Because it speaks from truth. And you, too. If you are walking this path, know this. You are not just recovering. You are growing in spirit. Whether you choose to live quietly or shine brightly, you carry something priceless now. A full, tender, honest presence. The small lesson here: sometimes you don't need to say something profound. You just need to be, with a heart that has learned how to be still without fear. And that alone can change someone's world. So if you feel ready to return, walk slowly, with the new light rising in your chest. And remember, you don't have to go back to who you were. You're allowed to walk forward as someone new, but still deeply, wholly you. And if you're still in the middle of the journey, still waiting for the light to reveal itself, don't worry. Because even if you haven't stepped out yet, that light has already begun to grow inside you. And in the final part of this journey, we will pause together, just to listen to a whisper you may have overlooked along the way. Final reflection: if you are here, you are being called. If you are still here, listening to these final words of the journey, then maybe you didn't arrive here by accident. Not everyone stays until the end. Not everyone has the patience to sit with the silence, to let each word, soft as mist, reach the quietest corners of their being. But you did. You stayed. And perhaps you were called here not by this video, but by your very own soul. I remember a man who once wrote to me after a silent retreat. He said, simply, "I don't know where I'm going, but for the first time, I don't feel alone in being lost." And I read that line in silence, because I understood. Sometimes we don't need a way out. We just need a gentle reminder. You are not alone. If you are in the midst of secret isolation right now, know this: you are on the right path. Even if no one sees, even if no one understands, you are growing, cell by cell, in the quiet. Maybe the world doesn't need you to become someone. Maybe all it's asking of you is to return to yourself, gently, truthfully. So what's the small lesson here? Not everyone is called. But if you're hearing a whisper inside you, if something in you feels like it's shifting, then trust this. That whisper is meant for you. The universe doesn't call the wrong souls. And the light you've been seeking might just be the light you were born to carry. Thank you for walking all the way through this journey. Thank you for having the courage to sit with the darkness, with yourself, and with the truth. If you feel called to, leave a single word in the comments. Awakening. No need to explain. Just a small sign, so other souls walking through the darkness can see they're not alone. And if you feel ready, carry this light forward, gently, slowly, but without turning back. Because from this moment on, you are no longer who you were. You are awakening, and you are ready. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. See you in the next journey.